I didn't lose money because I was reckless. I lost money because I didn't know who I was. People think lack is about numbers. It isn't, it's about identity. And sometimes things don't arrive late. They arrive after you stop needing them to prove who you are. This isn't a video about finances or hustling or getting rich. This is about releasing a version of myself that learned the wrong lessons and choosing consciously to grow beyond them. There's a moment, and you'll know it if you've ever been there, where you realise you're not actually tired, you're done, not burnt out, not defeated, just finished with carrying something that doesn't belong to you anymore. That's where this video comes from. This is about identity, about the quiet beliefs you carry around resources, time, energy, money, support, the ones you don't even realise are shaping your decisions. And for me, this feels like the last one I need to name before I can finally let go. For a long time, my life made sense in the present moment. For most of my adult life, I lived in my flow state. Hospitality did that for me. I didn't think about the future too much. I didn't plan 10 steps ahead. I lived in the present moment. You worked hard, you laughed harder, you finished late, you went somewhere warm. You came back with stories instead of savings, and I was okay with that. Actually, I was aligned with that. I lived in the moment, prioritised experiences over everything else, and honestly, I don't regret that. That version of me wasn't broken, he was alive, but inside that life there was always this low-level hum, a feeling that money was tight, temporary, something that came in and went straight back out again. And there was something else too, momentum. Show me your friends and I'll show you your future. That phrase exists for a reason. And although I had sensible friends, I also had access to different groups, different lifestyles, different social circles. There was always somewhere to go, always something happening, always a way to avoid stillness. And when money ran low, I didn't panic. I just assumed it would come back again, because it always had. But somewhere along the way, a quiet tension started to build. Not panic, not crisis, just a background hum. And then another voice crept in, a voice that said, "This is good, but it's not enough." That voice didn't come from joy, it came from comparison, from expectation, from the idea that at some point I should grow up. So I tried to do the right thing. I invested in myself, got my truck driving license, tried to step into something that looked more responsible. And every time I dipped my toe into it, my body told me the truth straight away. I didn't enjoy it, so I'd drift back into hospitality, back into what I felt natural, again and again. And every time I did, a subtle belief reinforced itself. There must be something wrong with me. Everyone else seems to figure this out, but the truth is, I was operating without a framework. No mentors, no teachers, no one ever sat me down and explained how money actually works. In the UK, we don't get taught this. Not in school, not in college. And if your family doesn't know, then you don't get guidance. You just inherit patterns and hope for the best. And life doesn't wait for frameworks to appear. And that thread runs all the way through this story. I met my wife, we had children, and something in me flipped. My energy stopped flowing inward towards enjoyment, curiosity, experience, and it started flowing outward, providing, protecting, building a future. I wanted to do right by my family. I wanted stability for them, even if I didn't fully know how to create it. And suddenly my money wasn't really mine anymore. It became about providing, about security, about getting my wife onto the property ladder. I poured everything into that, all my energy, all my focus, all my money. At the same time, we were both coping in our own ways. My wife shopped, parcels arriving every day, boxes at the door, spending as regulation, and I was managing the finances, or at least trying to, taking out loans to cover loans, kicking the can down the road, and somewhere in that period, we racked around 70 grand in debt, and hanging over all of it was the promise of money coming later. That's a dangerous place to live. After my dad died, we knew money was coming, and that future money quietly became permission to avoid fixing the present. We were still living beyond our means. The behaviours hadn't changed, the beliefs hadn't shifted, and without meaning to, I taught myself a dangerous lesson, that money appears and then it disappears. And when that money finally arrived, I thought I knew exactly what to do. I paid off the debt, £70,000, gone. And on paper that looks like success. It felt like relief, but it wasn't wisdom. Because nothing had actually changed underneath. The habits were the same. The relationship with money was the same. The emotional drivers were the same. I solved the symptom, not the system. And then I tried to be clever. I bought gold, about £20,000 worth, which ironically was actually a solid decision, but it was slow and I was impatient. So I sold it and bought Bitcoin, not as a long-term investor, but as someone who didn't fully understand what he was doing. Buying high, selling low, chasing the motion. 6 months later, it was all gone. And instead of learning the deeper lesson, I repeated the pattern. A few years later, I borrowed another £20,000. This time, I told myself I'd just hold it, but I didn't. I tried leverage trading, gambling dressed up as strategy, got wiped out again completely. That moment did something to me. It didn't just hurt financially, it rewrote my identity. I decided I was bad with money, and once you adopt that belief, you start behaving in ways that prove it true. When I met my next wife, I told her straight, I'm rubbish with money. And because she said she was good with it, I handed everything over every week, as if removing myself from the equation would remove the problem. Not because she asked, but because I didn't trust myself. That's not humility, that's abdication. And it reinforced the belief every single week. But it doesn't work like that. Now here I am, living with my mum, debt cleared between me and my wife, still owing my mum, but with no pressure. For the first time in my adult life, I'm sovereign. No one managing my money for me, no one leaning on me, no one depending on me financially, just me. And that's not scary anymore, it's clean. Here's the realization that landed recently. Lack isn't about how much you have, it's about how you relate to what you have. And once I saw that, the shame fell off. Here's the thing, I don't feel behind anymore. I feel reset. Like everything up until now was training, feedback, initiation. In Gene Key's language, this is the movement from shadow to gift, from corruption to equilibrium, from distorted relationships with power and resources to balance, and eventually to harmony. This is where it gets interesting, because when I look at my gene keys, the pattern is obvious. The shadow is pride, thinking I knew, not asking for help. The gift is artfulness, learning to move with life instead of forcing it. And the seedy is invincibility, not needing to prove anything. Money was never my enemy, but my relationship with it was out of alignment. That belief doesn't belong to who I'm becoming. I'm letting go of the version of me that believed resources were always scarce. Now I can choose differently. I've been saying in my water ritual that whatever resources, time, inspiration I need will flow naturally to me. And I've noticed something. As soon as I truly believed that, my body relaxed. I stopped chasing, stopped grasping, stopped trying to force outcomes. And now, alignment without effort. I can feel something shifting, not just financially, but internally, like a veil lifting. So here's what I'm doing now, not dramatically, not perfectly, but deliberately. I'm taking 20% of my wage, 15% into long-term investments, 5% into savings. Not because the amount will change my life overnight, but because discipline changes identity. This is a 90-day reset to retrain my nervous system, teaching my body that money can stay. I'm no longer outsourcing responsibility. I'm no longer gambling for shortcuts. I'm no longer defining myself by past mistakes. This is me stepping out of the shadow of scarcity and into the gift of stewardship. I trust that the resources I need will arrive when they're required, not to rescue me, but to meet me as I am now. I don't feel like I'm waiting anymore. I feel like I'm aligning. And when I say I'm about to step into the best years of my life, I don't mean financially, I mean internally. Because once the lack story goes quiet, everything else starts to organize itself. Time, energy, resources, they don't arrive through force, they arrive through coherence. This video is not a promise, it's a release. The same way night shift was a release, the same way living with my mum was a release, the same way reaching out to my wife for the last time was a release. This is me closing that chapter, not pretending it didn't happen, not rewriting history, but refusing to carry it as identity any longer. So if you're watching this and you've been carrying a story about lack, maybe it's not your bank balance, maybe it's just a belief that's ready to be retired. If this resonated with you, you're not broken, you're recalibrating, and sometimes release looks a lot like honesty. I don't know exactly how the next chapter unfolds, but I do know this. The version of me who believed he was bad with money is done. The version of me who lives aligned, grounded, and conscious is just getting started. And that feels like the beginning of the best years of my life.